February 12, 1944. Luftwaffe High Command, Berlin, Germany. Oberst Heinrich Müller laid the intelligence report on the polished oak table and snorted. A veteran of 73 combat missions with 41 confirmed kills, he picked up his coffee cup with the dismissive gesture of a man accustomed to being right. "Look at this," Müller said, tapping the paper with his finger. "The Americans think adding external fuel tanks will let their fighters reach Berlin." Major Franz Weber, his intelligence officer, nodded from across the table. "Absurd, Herr Oberst." Even with additional fuel, their escorts turned back at the Rhine. Hauptmann Klaus Dietrich, chief of tactical analysis, leaned forward slightly. "Herr Oberst, the production figures from American factories suggest they may attempt," but Müller waved him off. "Production means nothing if physics defeats them. Our Mi-109s hold altitude advantage. Our FW-190s possess superior armament. We maintain interior lines of communication and supply." At Schweinfurt, the Americans lost 60 bombers in a single day. At Regensburg, they lost another 60 in the same week. At Ploiesti, 70 aircraft failed to return. The mathematics were undeniable. Unescorted bombers could not survive concentrated fighter attack. What Müller didn't know, what none of them could have known as they reviewed intelligence reports in that Berlin headquarters, was that drop tank technology would enable P-51 Mustangs to escort bombers to Berlin and back within 90 days. The numbers would become catastrophic. 1,200 Luftwaffe fighters destroyed in March 1944 alone. 2,442 pilots lost in spring operations. 4,000 aircraft destroyed between February and June. The laughter in that conference room would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in the complete destruction of the Luftwaffe as an effective fighting force. At Schweinfurt, August 17, 1943, the Americans lost 36 B-17s with kill ratio favoring German fighters 36-0 over the target. At Regensburg on the same day, 24 American bombers failed to return against 0 German losses. At the second Schweinfurt raid, October 14, 1943, 77 B-17s were destroyed with German losses numbering 38 fighters, still favorable mathematics at approximately 2-1. The Messerschmitt Bf-109G6 carried 2 13 machine guns and 1 20mm cannon firing through the propeller hub, plus 2 20mm cannons in underwing pods. Maximum speed reached 386 mph at 22,640 feet, with service ceiling of 37,890 feet. Combat radius extended 350 miles with external drop tank. The Focke-Wulf 190A8 mounted 2 13 machine guns in the cowling and 4 20mm cannons in the wings. Maximum speed achieved 408 mph at 20,669 feet, with service ceiling of 37,403 feet. Both aircraft possessed superior armament to early American escorts. American P-38 Lightnings suffered compressibility problems in high-speed dives. P-47 Thunderbolts, while effective, could only escort to the German border before fuel considerations forced them to turn back. P-51B Mustangs, recently introduced, possessed excellent performance but initially operated with same range limitations as other escorts. Approximately 475 miles combat radius, insufficient to reach deep German targets. Oberst Müller's combat record included 41 confirmed aerial victories achieved between 1941 and 1943. He had shot down 14 RAF Spitfires over France, 9 P-38s over Germany, 11 B-17 bombers during unescorted raids, and 7 Soviet aircraft on the Eastern Front. His Knight's Cross with oak leaves testified to proven combat effectiveness. Major Weber presented intelligence estimates to headquarters in January 1944 showing American bomber production reaching 1,000 heavy bombers monthly. "This means nothing," Weber reported Müller saying. "Production without protection equals merely more targets." Müller cited mathematics. Unescorted bomber formations suffered 15–25% losses per mission over Germany. No air force could sustain such attrition. Therefore, deep penetration raids into Germany would cease, or American bomber crews would be annihilated. Hauptmann Dietrich flew observation missions in twin-engine Mi-110s, witnessing American bomber formations turning back after their escorts reached maximum range. German fighters then attacked with impunity. He observed P-47 Thunderbolts breaking off engagement at the Rhine River on February 8, 1944. He watched P-38 Lightnings reach only to Frankfurt before returning on February 10. The pattern held consistent. American escorts possessed insufficient range to protect bombers over Germany itself. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Inglewood, California, December 1943. James Kindleberger, president of North American Aviation, walked through the Inglewood facility where workers assembled P-51 Mustang fighters. This single facility produced 42 aircraft daily. Every 18 minutes, another Mustang rolled off the assembly line. In September 1943, America produced just 156 P-51 Mustangs monthly. By November 1943, production reached 388 aircraft monthly as additional facilities came online. By January 1944, Inglewood facility alone was producing 450 aircraft monthly, while the Dallas facility added another 350. This single Inglewood facility was producing more fighters monthly than the entire German aviation industry could manufacture Me-109s and FW-190s combined. American production achieved numbers that made European minds rebel against belief. Mary Henderson, previously a schoolteacher from Pasadena, now operated a riveting gun on the P-51 fuselage line, producing an average of 847 rivets per 8-hour shift across 17 fuselage sections. She and 3 coworkers completed 2 full fuselage assemblies daily. Their team produced more fuselage sections in 1 week than the entire Messerschmitt Regensburg facility produced complete fighters. Her station represented one of 340 similar riveting positions in the Inglewood plant. The mathematics multiplied into numbers that seemed impossible. 287,980 rivets driven daily in P-51 fuselages at this single facility. Henderson earned $1.85 per hour, substantially more than her teaching salary. She worked alongside 4,200 other women who had entered aircraft manufacturing since 1942. These women produced more fighters in one California facility than the German Reich produced across all its scattered factories. Robert Jefferson, from Detroit, Michigan, operated the hydraulic press that formed P-51 fuel tank sections. His single station's daily output totaled 84 internal fuel tank assemblies plus components for 96 external drop tanks. The internal tanks held 184 gallons each for the standard P-51B model. The external drop tanks, manufactured from pressed paper and glue rather than strategic metals, held 75 gallons, 108 gallons, or 150 gallons depending on model. Jefferson's station alone produced sufficient tank capacity for 15,456 gallons daily. This exceeded the entire daily fuel allocation for 3 Luftwaffe fighter groups. His press operated continuously across 3 shifts with different operators, meaning actual daily output reached 46,368 gallons of fuel storage capacity. A single hydraulic press in California generated more fuel storage capacity daily than German industry could manufacture in a week. Harold Bennett, $1-a-year man from General Motors, managed production scheduling for the drop tank program. His office coordinated contracts with 23 different manufacturers producing external tanks. The 75-gallon tanks cost $17.50 to manufacture using paper, glue, and minimal metal fittings. The 108-gallon tanks cost $23. The 150-gallon tanks cost $28.50. Bennett's program contracted for 50,000 drop tanks monthly by February 1944. Production cost totaled approximately $1.1 million monthly for tanks that would revolutionize aerial warfare. This represented less than the cost of 3 B-17 bombers. The drop tank program's entire monthly budget equaled what Germany spent on a single day's fuel allocation for the Luftwaffe. Bennett's genius lay not in invention, but in industrialization, taking the proven British drop tank concept and manufacturing it at American scale. Americans discarded 2,400 pounds of aluminum scrap daily from P-51 production at Inglewood alone. German allocation for the entire Me-109 program totaled 1,800 pounds of aluminum daily. The waste from one American facility exceeded total enemy capacity. Workers threw away rivets that failed quality inspection at a rate of 840 per day. Germans rationed rivets for fighters by counting individual units. The cafeteria at Inglewood discarded 1,840 pounds of food daily, more meat, bread, eggs, and milk than the entire Regensburg Messerschmitt facility received for 2,100 workers monthly. Specifically, the American facility discarded 340 pounds of beef daily, while German workers received 2.8 pounds monthly per worker, totaling 5,880 pounds for the entire month. The American cafeteria waste for 17 days exceeded German monthly allocation. Single-shift bathroom tissue consumption at Inglewood totaled 840 rolls weekly. German allocation for industrial facilities provided 1 roll per 12 workers monthly. Testing ammunition for P-51 machine guns consumed 48,000 rounds daily at the Inglewood firing range. Luftwaffe fighter groups received 12,000 rounds monthly for training across entire squadrons of 30 aircraft. The waste from quality testing at one American facility exceeded operational allocation for German combat training. Major Weber appeared at Luftwaffe intelligence headquarters with American production figures acquired through Swiss banking contacts. He reported to Generalfeldmarschall Erhard Milch. American fighter production reached 4,200 aircraft in January 1944. Our production totaled 1,580. Single American facilities exceed our entire industrial capacity. Milch reviewed the figures and stated, "Intelligence is obviously flawed. No democracy possesses such organizational capacity." Weber persisted. Herr Generalfeldmarschall, photographic reconnaissance confirms 14 major aircraft assembly facilities in America compared to our 4 primary plants. The warning went unheeded. German leadership assumed the numbers represented either intelligence errors or included training aircraft, obsolete types, and non-combat airframes. They could not accept that free workers in California produced more combat aircraft than enslaved labor across occupied Europe. March 3, 1944, Oberammergau, Germany, 12:37 hours. Hauptmann Klaus Dietrich was leading a swarm of 4 FW-190s on routine patrol when radar control reported American bomber formation approaching from the northwest. Standard procedure called for climbing to 28,000 feet and positioning ahead of bomber stream for head-on attack. At 12:44 hours, Dietrich spotted the B-17 formation, approximately 40 bombers in combat box formation. At 12:46 hours, he positioned for attack run. At 12:47 hours and 15 seconds, he saw the Escort fighters. They were P-51 Mustangs, but they were still with the bombers deep over Germany, 150 miles past where Escorts normally turned back. At 12:48 hours, 4 Mustangs dove on his swarm. Dietrich broke right. His wingman, Lieutenant Hermann Koch, attempted to follow. At 12:48 hours and 34 seconds, Koch's FW-190 exploded in a burst of 50 caliber machine gun fire. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 34 seconds. Kill time, 34 seconds. At 12:49 hours, Dietrich reversed to engage the Mustangs. The American fighters possessed superior speed at altitude. His FW-190 could not close the distance. At 12:49 hours and 41 seconds, a second P-51 appeared on his tail. Dietrich pushed his throttle to emergency power and dove. At 12:50 hours and 8 seconds, he leveled out at 12,000 feet, having lost the pursuing Mustang. His remaining 2 aircraft regrouped. At 12:51 hours, they attempted another approach on the bomber formation. 8 P-51s intercepted them before they could reach firing position. At 12:51 hours and 52 seconds, Unteroffizier Wilhelm Krause's aircraft took multiple hits and began streaming smoke. At 12:52 hours and 14 seconds, Krause bilayed out. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 22 seconds. Kill time, 22 seconds. Dietrich and his surviving wingman disengaged and returned to base. Total engagement duration, 5 minutes 14 seconds. Enemy losses, 1 FW-190 destroyed, 1 FW-190 damaged beyond repair, 1 pilot killed, 1 pilot wounded. American losses, 0. Kill ratio, 2-0 in favor of Americans. The engagement represented Dietrich's first encounter with long-range P-51 escorts over Germany proper. Subsequent debriefing revealed the Mustangs carried external drop tanks providing extended range. Standard P-51 B internal fuel capacity totaled 184 gallons. Addition of 2 75-gallon drop tanks increased total fuel to 334 gallons. extending combat radius from 475 miles to approximately 650 miles, sufficient to reach Berlin and return to England. The ammunition expended in this 5-minute engagement exceeded the monthly allocation for Dietrich's entire base at Oberammergau, which received 40,000 rounds monthly for training and operations across 18 fighters. The 8 P-51s that engaged his formation carried 12,800 rounds total, 600 rounds per aircraft across 8 guns. They expended an estimated 3,200 rounds in the brief engagement, or 8% of the base's entire monthly allocation in 5 minutes. Oberst Müller received Dietrich's report at 1840 hours that evening. He read the account of P-51s operating 150 miles inside Germany with visible skepticism. "Drop tanks," he said. "Interesting but meaningless. They sacrifice maneuverability carrying external fuel. We will shoot them down when they cannot jettison tanks quickly enough in combat." Müller ordered tactical modification. German fighters would engage American escorts before they could drop external tanks, forcing them to fight at disadvantage or jettison fuel prematurely. The order assumed American pilots would retain drop tanks in combat rather than immediately jettisoning them upon enemy contact. This assumption would prove catastrophically wrong. Intelligence dismissed the reports as isolated incidents of P-51s with experimental extended-range configurations. Oberst Müller personally reviewed 14 separate encounter reports from March 3-6, 1944, describing American escorts operating deep over Germany. "Impossible," he stated during staff meeting on March 7. "Physics prevents single-engine fighters from reaching Berlin with combat-capable fuel reserves. These are reconnaissance variants or aircraft that have abandoned their formations. They cannot maintain formation integrity over such distances." He calculated fuel consumption rates. P-51B consumed approximately 70 gallons per hour at cruise power settings. Flight time from England to Berlin totaled 2.4 hours one way. Round trip required 4.8 hours flight time plus 30 minutes combat reserve. Total fuel requirement reached 366 gallons. Standard P-51B carried 184 gallons internally. Therefore, Müller concluded, claims of formation strength escorts over Berlin represent pilot errors in position reporting or encounter with experimental aircraft, not operational capability. Major Weber reported to headquarters with updated intelligence on March 9, 1944. American P-51 production reached 489 aircraft in February. Our combined Me-109 and FW-190 production totaled 1,016. However, American bomber escort requirements demand only 300-400 fighters monthly to replace combat losses and expand escort coverage. Their excess production means 100-200 additional fighters enter operational service monthly above replacement requirements. He presented photographic reconnaissance showing external fuel tanks visible on P-51s at English airfields. These drop tanks provide additional 150-180 gallons fuel capacity, enabling Berlin range missions. Weber calculated revised fuel requirements. 184 gallons internal plus 150 gallons external totaled 334 gallons available, sufficient for 4.7 hours flight time at cruise power, covering Berlin mission profile with acceptable reserves. German intelligence possessed the correct data. Command chose to disbelieve it. American production reached numbers that defied German comprehension. In March 1944, United States aircraft industry produced 5,139 fighters total across all types. German industry produced 1,581 fighters. A single American manufacturer, Republic Aviation, produced 603 P-47 Thunderbolts in March. Entire German fighter production across all facilities totaled 1,581 aircraft. Republic Aviation's single Farmingdale, New York facility exceeded total Luftwaffe fighter replacement capacity. North American Aviation produced 598 P-51 Mustangs in March between Inglewood and Dallas facilities. Adding Bell Aircraft's P-39 P-63 production of 447 aircraft, Lockheed's 291 P-38 Lightnings, and Grumman's 485 F-6F Hellcats meant American single-engine fighter production totaled 2,424 aircraft monthly. 53% more than total German aircraft production across all categories, including bombers, transports, and trainers. They tried increasing fighter concentrations at likely interception points. The Americans maintained continuous escort coverage, with fighters rotating in scheduled waves. They attempted attacking bomber formations before escort rendezvous. American timing improved until gap between bomber departure and escort arrival narrowed to mere minutes. They tried focusing attacks on escort fighters rather than bombers. American numerical superiority meant even successful engagements yielded unfavorable exchange ratios. Germans lost 2 fighters for every P-51 destroyed. They attempted high-altitude attacks from above escort ceiling. P-51 Mustangs climbed rapidly and matched altitude performance of Me-109 GS above 25,000 feet. Every tactical modification failed against industrial mathematics. March 6, 1944. Berlin, Germany, 13:14 hours. 69 B-17s approached Berlin escorted by 48 P-51 Mustangs of the 4th Fighter Group. Oberst Müller personally led a formation of 24 Me-109 G6s to intercept. At 13:18 hours, Müller's fighters engaged the P-51 Escort. The Americans immediately jettisoned external drop tanks and turned into the German formation. At 13:19 hours and 18 seconds, Lieutenant Otto Becker's Me-109 exploded. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 1 minute 18 seconds. Kill time, 78 seconds. At 13:20 hours and 45 seconds, Feldwebel Ernst Hartmann's aircraft took multiple hits and dove away trailing smoke. At 13:21 hours and 12 seconds, Oberleutnant Friedrich Baum's Me-109 broke apart after wing failure from battle damage. Kill time, 27 seconds. At 13:22 hours, Müller ordered his formation to break off and attempt to reach the bomber stream. 8 P-51s pursued. At 13:23 hours and 34 seconds, Unteroffizier Hans Vogel's aircraft was shot down. Kill time, 34 seconds. Müller's formation never reached the bombers. Total engagement duration, 5 minutes 34 seconds. German losses, 3 Me-109s destroyed, 4 damaged, 3 pilots killed, 2 pilots wounded, 1 pilot captured. American losses, 1 P-51 damaged, pilot returned safely to England. Kill ratio, 3-0 German aircraft destroyed. The bomber formation continued to Berlin without loss. Müller returned to base having failed to intercept a single bomber. In his mission report, he noted, American escort maintained numerical superiority throughout engagement. Enemy fighters demonstrated excellent climb performance and speed advantage above 22,000 feet. External fuel tanks were jettisoned immediately upon contact, allowing full maneuverability. Tactical assessment. American fighter escorts now possess sufficient range to accompany bomber formations to any target in Germany. Major Weber presented final evidence to Luftwaffe operations staff on March 15, 1944. He displayed reconnaissance photographs of American P-51s with drop tanks at 37 different English airfields. He presented intercept radio traffic showing American fighter formations rendezvous with bombers over Germany. He compiled 147 separate combat encounter reports from March 114 describing P-51 escorts operating beyond previous maximum range. The Americans have achieved Berlin range escort capability, Weber stated. Our fighter force faces simultaneous numerical disadvantage and inability to engage bomber streams without first defeating escort screen. Mathematically, we cannot sustain current loss rates. Command staff acknowledged the assessment. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring reportedly stated, "It is impossible for the Americans to have fighters over Berlin. If I see one, I will personally shoot it down." Oberst Müller refused to accept the mathematics. "We will adapt our tactics. The laws of physics have not changed. We will find the vulnerability in their system." Hauptmann Dietrich observed the escalation from his tactical analysis position. He watched German fighter losses climb from 40-50 aircraft daily in February to 8,100 aircraft daily by mid-March. He compiled data showing average German fighter pilot combat sorties before death or serious injury declined from 48 missions in 1943 to 23 missions by March 1944. He calculated replacement pilot training, producing 180 new fighter pilots monthly, while combat attrition exceeded 300 pilots monthly. "The mathematics are conclusive," Dietrich reported. "We face systemic collapse within 90 days unless attrition rates change dramatically." His assessment reached headquarters. No operational changes resulted. The Luftwaffe would fight using existing tactics until industrial mathematics resolved the equation through force exhaustion. At Inglewood, California, P-51 production achieved 16.2 aircraft per day during peak March 1944 operations. Every 89 minutes, another complete fighter rolled off the final assembly line. This single facility produced more fighters daily than the entire German aviation industry could manufacture Me-109s and FW-190s combined across all Reich facilities. American production represented not merely quantitative superiority, but categorical transformation of industrial warfare. Where European factories counted aircraft by dozens, Americans measured output in hundreds. Americans discarded 18,000 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition daily during quality control testing at the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant. German allocation for fighter pilot training totaled 12,000 rounds monthly for entire squadrons. A single day's American quality control waste exceeded German monthly training allocation for 30 pilots. The Lake City facility produced 3.2 million rounds of 50 caliber ammunition daily. German production across all calibers totaled 2.8 million rounds daily for all weapon systems including rifles, machine guns, cannon, and anti-aircraft guns. One American ammunition plant exceeded total German small arms production. Testing procedures rejected any cartridge showing variation exceeding 0.001 inches in case dimensions. Rejected ammunition was melted and reprocessed. Germans allocated defective ammunition to training units rather than wasting scarce materials. Workers at Inglewood threw away defective aluminum rivets at a rate of 4,200 pieces per day. German quartermaster regulations required collection and return of all defective rivets for resmelting and manufacturing. American workers simply discarded failures and grabbed replacements from unlimited supply bins. Each workstation maintained 2,000 rivets in immediate inventory. The facility stored 8.4 million rivets in on-site warehouses. German facilities allocated rivets by counting individual pieces and requiring signed receipts from work supervisors. American abundance made such accounting meaningless. The psychological impact of unlimited materials affected productivity. American workers operated without fear of material shortage, maintaining higher sustained tempo than German counterparts who conserved every piece due to chronic scarcity. The cafeteria at Inglewood discarded more food daily than German workers received monthly. Specifically, American workers had unlimited access to meat, eggs, milk, bread, vegetables, and coffee. Daily cafeteria waste included 840 pounds of edible food, plate scrapings, overproduction, and expired items. German workers at Regensburg Messerschmitt facility received monthly rations of 12 ounces of meat, 4 eggs, 1 liter of milk, and ersatz coffee made from acorns and chicory. The Inglewood cafeteria served 2,400 pounds of beef weekly to 4,800 workers. Regensburg facility's 2,100 workers received 157 pounds of beef monthly total. Americans consumed 15 times more meat per capita while simultaneously producing 4 times more aircraft per worker. Nutrition directly affected productivity. Well-fed American workers maintained higher energy levels and sustained concentration longer than malnourished German counterparts. Aluminum scrap from single day's P-51 production at Inglewood totaled 3,400 pounds. Waste trimmings, defective castings, and manufacturing offcuts. German monthly allocation for Me-109 production totaled 54,000 pounds of aluminum for the entire Regensburg facility, producing 110-120 aircraft monthly. One day's American waste equaled 6.3% of German monthly allocation for complete aircraft. The Inglewood facility produced 486 aircraft in March, consuming 2.4 million pounds of aluminum, 444 pounds per day. German consumption for equivalent production would have required 60,000 pounds of aluminum daily, but American manufacturing efficiency extracted more aircraft from less material through superior industrial processes. American waste exceeded German allocation because baseline consumption was so vast that even small percentage losses represented huge absolute quantities. Discarded ammunition from testing at Camp Perry, Ohio exceeded German combat allocation across entire Luftwaffe fighter force. Testing procedures fired 100 rounds from every batch of 10,000 manufactured rounds to verify reliability. Daily testing consumed 320,000 rounds of 50 caliber ammunition. German fighter units received monthly allocation of 200,000 rounds for all combat operations across approximately 1,200 operational fighters. This meant 167 rounds per aircraft monthly. American testing procedure alone consumed more ammunition in 2 days than German fighters expended in a month of combat. American P-51s carried 1,600 rounds per aircraft, more than 9 German fighters carried total. The ammunition disparity reflected larger industrial mathematics. American factories produced such abundance that waste exceeded enemy combat capability. Major Weber compiled final production statistics for Luftwaffe headquarters in April 1944. His report documented American fighter production reaching 5,847 aircraft in March, while German production totaled 1,581. American bomber production added another 2,544 heavy bombers monthly. The mathematics are conclusive, Weber wrote. American productive capacity exceeds our maximum effort by factor of 4 in fighters and represents capabilities we cannot match in any category. Single American factories produce more aircraft monthly than our entire industrial base. Their excess capacity exceeds our total production. We face defeat not from inferior courage or tactics, but from industrial inadequacy. The report reached Generalfeld Marschall Milch, who forwarded it to Albert Speer, Armaments Minister. Speer's response focused on increasing German production to 3,000 fighters monthly by September 1944. This increase, while substantial, would still represent only 51% of American fighter production. Germany had lost the industrial war before the military war reached decision point. March 22, 1944, air battle over Berlin. 224 B-17 bombers approached Berlin, escorted by 173 P-51 Mustangs from 5 fighter groups. German defenders scrambled 192 fighters, 109 Me-109s, and 83 FW-190s. The engagement lasted 1 hour, 47 minutes. At 13:05 hours, first contact occurred as German fighters climbed to intercept altitude. At 13:08 hours, leading German formation of 24 Me-109s engaged the forward escort screen. American P-51s immediately jettisoned drop tanks and turned into the attack. At 13:10 hours, 9 German fighters had been destroyed. Kill time per aircraft averaged 13.3 seconds, some kills achieved in as little as 8 seconds, others requiring up to 22 seconds. At 13:13 hours, the second German wave of 31 FW-190s attempted to penetrate escort screen from higher altitude. They were engaged by 28 P-51s of the 357th Fighter Group. At 13:16 hours, 12 FW-190s had been destroyed. 0 American losses. At 13:20 hours, 46 German fighters attempted coordinated attack from multiple directions. American numerical superiority allowed simultaneous engagement from all quadrants. German fighters found themselves outnumbered in every local engagement despite equal overall numbers, because American formation discipline maintained concentrated strength while German attacks dispersed into individual combats. At 13:24 hours, German fighter strength had been reduced by 38 aircraft destroyed or damaged. At 13:28 hours, remaining German fighters broke off engagement, unable to reach bomber formation. The B-17s proceeded to target without loss from fighter attack. Flak accounted for 4 bombers, but 0 fell to German fighters during the approach. At 13:40 hours after bombing Berlin, the formation turned for home. German fighters regrouped and attempted interception during withdrawal phase. 67 German fighters engaged 89 P-51s providing withdrawal escort. At 13:43 hours, first contact. At 13:46 hours, 18 German aircraft had been destroyed. At 13:49 hours, American escort rotated, with fresh P-51s from reserve flights engaging while earlier escorts disengaged to preserve fuel for return flight. This rotation maintained continuous pressure on German fighters while American pilots managed fuel reserves. At 13:55 hours, German fighter command ordered general withdrawal. Remaining German aircraft disengaged and returned to base. Enemy aircraft destroyed. 81 German fighters, 53 Me-109s, 28 FW-190s, confirmed destroyed with an additional 37 damaged. American losses, 12 P-51s destroyed, 19 damaged. Kill ratio, 6:75, 1 in favor of Americans. The ammunition expended in this engagement totaled approximately 1.8 million rounds of 50 caliber ammunition from American fighters. German monthly allocation for training across all fighter units totaled 1.2 million rounds. A single day's combat consumed more ammunition than German fighters received monthly for training. The fuel consumed by 173 P-51s during this mission totaled approximately 57,820 gallons, 334 gallons per aircraft for the round-trip mission. German weekly allocation for all fighter units totaled 840,000 gallons, or 120,000 gallons daily. This single American mission consumed 48% of German daily allocation for entire fighter force. At 13:51 hours, Oberst Heinrich Müller engaged a P-51 of the 4th Fighter Group near Brandenburg. Müller possessed 41 confirmed kills and 20 years of flying experience. The American pilot, 2nd Lieutenant Robert Johnson, had been flying combat missions for 6 weeks. Müller positioned for deflection shot on Johnson's aircraft. At 13:51 hours and 34 seconds, Johnson broke left and climbed. Müller followed, closing to 200 meters. At 13:52 hours and 12 seconds, Müller fired a 3-second burst. Johnson's P-51 took hits in the right wing but remained airborne. At 13:52 hours and 28 seconds, Johnson reversed and dove. Müller followed. At 13:52 hours and 45 seconds, another P-51 appeared on Müller's tail, Johnson's wingman, Lieutenant David Freeman. At 13:53 hours and 3 seconds, Freeman opened fire from 150 meters. At 13:53 hours and 11 seconds, Müller's Me-109 took multiple hits. At 13:53 hours and 18 seconds, Müller's aircraft exploded. Elapsed time from engagement to death, 1 minute 44 seconds. Kill time from Freeman's first shot to explosion, 15 seconds. Müller had been wrong about every assumption. Drop tanks did not compromise American maneuverability because they were jettisoned immediately upon contact. P-51s did not lack endurance because external fuel provided Berlin range coverage. American pilots were not inferior despite less experience because superior numbers meant combat veterans could train new pilots through actual engagements. German tactical skill meant nothing against industrial mathematics. Müller died believing German fighters were superior. The statistics proved otherwise. In March 1944, Luftwaffe lost 56% of its operational fighter pilots, killed, wounded, or captured. Replacement rate provided only 34% of losses. American attrition rate remained below 3% because overwhelming numerical superiority meant individual pilot exposure to danger decreased as total fighter strength increased. Surviving German pilots reported consistent observations. This wasn't combat, this was systematic annihilation. The Americans didn't merely outnumber German fighters, they operated at different scale entirely. Where German formation might contain 24 fighters, Americans deployed 48. Where German base might scramble 40 fighters, Americans committed 160. Where German pilot might complete 4 sorties daily, Americans flew 2, but with 4 times the aircraft. Mathematics favored the side with greater absolute numbers rather than individual superiority. One excellent German pilot facing 4 adequate American pilots resulted in 1 German loss. The Luftwaffe could not win a war of attrition against American production capacity. May 1945, Interrogation Center, England. Major Franz Weber sat across the table from American intelligence officers and provided testimony regarding German fighter operations during 1944-45. "We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories," Weber stated. In March 1944, America produced 5,847 fighters. Germany produced 1,581. By June, American production reached 6,200 fighters monthly, while our production achieved 2,100. A single American factory, Republic Aviation at Farmingdale, produced 603 P-47s monthly. Our entire Me-109 production across 6 factories totaled 892 aircraft monthly. The mathematics were impossible. No tactical innovation, no pilot skill, No technical improvement could overcome 4-to-1 production disadvantage. Weber provided detailed statistics from intelligence files he had maintained throughout the war. Every number supported the same conclusion. Industrial capacity determined military outcome regardless of tactical prowess. Hauptmann Klaus Dietrich survived the war and provided testimony in June 1945. I saw the first P-51s with drop tanks over Oberammergau on March 3, 1944, Dietrich stated. They carried 2 external tanks, each holding 75 gallons. I watched them jettison the tanks when we engaged. The Americans didn't just outproduce us. They revolutionized production itself. We counted rivets and rationed aluminum by the pound. They threw away more material daily than we allocated monthly. Their cafeterias served more meat weekly than our workers received monthly. Their testing procedures expended more ammunition daily than we allocated for combat. The disparity wasn't merely quantitative but categorical. They operated at a scale we couldn't comprehend because our entire economy was structured around scarcity, while theirs functioned through abundance. Generalleutnant Adolf Galland, commander of German fighter forces, testified in July 1945. We brought swords to an industrial war. The Americans brought factories. In January 1944, we possessed approximately 1,100 operational fighters facing similar American numbers. By April, we had 800 operational fighters facing 2,400 American fighters. By June, we had 600 facing 4,200. The mathematics were merciless. Their excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. We could lose 200 fighters and could replace 120. They could lose 200 and replace 340. Within 6 months, the mathematics resolved into our extinction. I calculated in March 1944 that we would lose the fighter war by September. I was incorrect. We lost it by June. Oberst Johann Steinhoff testified. American productive capacity represented something unprecedented in military history. They could lose 400 fighters and replace them in 8 days. We required 45 days to replace 400 fighters, and that was at maximum production. Their monthly fighter output exceeded our total annual production in 1942. A single American ammunition plant produced more .50 caliber rounds daily than we produced across all calibers. The mathematics were catastrophic. We were flying against an enemy who treated aircraft as disposable because they could manufacture replacements faster than we could destroy them. Feldmarschall Erhard Milch, director of German aircraft production, provided economic testimony. American production, 96,318 aircraft in 1944 total. German production, 39,807 aircraft. Single American manufacturer North American Aviation produced 16,234 aircraft, 41% of Germany's total across all manufacturers and all categories. Their bomber production alone exceeded our total aircraft production. Curtiss-Wright produced more engines monthly than we produced complete aircraft. Ford Motor Company's Willow Run facility produced 1 B-24 bomber every 63 minutes. Our entire bomber production totaled 2,287 aircraft annually. Willow Run produced 432 bombers monthly, or 5,184 annually from a single factory. The entire American economy was mobilized for war production while we attempted to maintain civilian consumption patterns until 1943. When we finally implemented total mobilization, we still achieved only 40% of American output per capita. They possessed superior raw materials, superior industrial base, superior workforce training, and superior management systems. We never had a chance of matching their production. American production totaled 96,318 aircraft in 1944. German production reached 39,807. Single American factory, Willow Run, produced 432 B-24 bombers monthly. Entire German bomber program produced 190 bombers monthly across all types and all factories. North American Aviation's combined facilities produced 1,353 aircraft monthly in peak production. Germany's entire aviation industry produced 3,317 aircraft monthly. One American corporation produced 41% of total German national output. The mathematical disparity extended beyond aircraft to ammunition, fuel, spare parts, and every other category of military logistics. American industrial capacity was not merely double or triple German capacity. It exceeded German capacity by 4 to 6 times, depending on category measured. The drop tank proved that democratic industrial systems outperformed authoritarian command economies when both mobilized for total war. Free workers at Inglewood, California produced more fighters monthly than enslaved labor across occupied Europe. Democratic cooperation between government, industry, and labor exceeded totalitarian command structures. Industrial abundance buried ideological superiority under mathematical proof measurable in aircraft production rates, ammunition expenditure, and kill ratios. The Third Reich's faith in will, in racial superiority, in tactical excellence, collapsed against American manufacturing capacity. Germans brought excellent pilots flying excellent aircraft. Americans brought adequate pilots flying good aircraft in overwhelming numbers. Mathematics resolved the conflict without respect for courage, skill, or determination. February 12, 1944, Oberst Heinrich Müller had laughed at American efforts to create Berlin range fighter escorts. June 22, 1944, Müller was dead, killed by a pilot with 6 weeks of combat experience because that pilot's wingman appeared at the decisive moment. March 1944, Germany possessed fighter-pilot numerical parity with Allied forces. September 1944, Germany possessed 1/3 the fighters and 1/4 the pilots. Their mockery became history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in the complete destruction of the Luftwaffe as an effective fighting force by spring 1945. The laughter in that Berlin conference room cost Germany air superiority, cost the Reich any chance of industrial recovery, and ultimately cost them the war. The P-51 Mustang with drop tanks didn't win the air war through technical superiority. Its performance roughly matched German fighters. It won through industrial mathematics. America produced 15,586 P-51s total. Germany produced 33,984 Me-109s total, but across 6 years versus 3 years of P-51 production. In the 18 months when it mattered, January 1944 through June 1945, America produced 14,819 P-51s, while Germany produced 18,953 Me-109s and FW-190s combined. But America simultaneously produced 14,795 P-47 Thunderbolts, 4,186 P-38 Lightnings, and thousands of Navy fighters. German production represented maximum possible effort under total mobilization. American production represented 61% of industrial capacity. They maintained 39% civilian production throughout. The abundance didn't merely provide numerical advantage, it created psychological dominance. German pilots knew every aircraft lost was difficult to replace. American pilots knew losses would be replaced within days. This knowledge affected combat behavior, risk calculation, and operational planning. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace or underestimating free people's productive capacity invites catastrophic miscalculation. Industrial democracies possess latent productive capability that exceeds authoritarian states when fully mobilized. The United States in 1939 possessed smaller military than Romania. By 1945, American military production exceeded combined output of all Axis powers plus the Soviet Union. Free labor proved more productive than enslaved labor. Democratic cooperation exceeded authoritarian command. Market economics adapted faster than centralized planning. These weren't anomalies but systematic advantages inherent to political and economic structures. The drop tank symbolized this reality. A simple paper and glue fuel tank, mass-produced in quantities that defied belief, turned operational possibility into strategic reality. Industrial mathematics resolved the war before military operations reached conclusion. Germany lost when American production reached scale. Everything afterward represented working out predetermined equations written in factory output statistics.